The Afghan Women of Brattleboro is a 6-part podcast series by Two Daughters Productions, produced with support from Vermont Public's Made Here Fund. Learn more at vermontpublic.org/madeherefund.
My name is Kamala, your Kamala Kitchen. Make the food, everything.
Kamala's Kitchen is an Afghan food stand at the Winter Farmers Market in Brattleboro, Vermont. Kamala is in her late 50s. She's got a brilliant smile and a generous hand when she's serving the rice, meat, and vegetables spread out on the table in front of her. She's been up most of the night cooking.
One beef kebab.
Yeah, very excited. One chicken kebab.
One
please.
chicken. Yeah. Rice is it? Oh, okay, just chicken. Okay?
Yeah.
This is for you. Welcome, enjoy.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi, I have a deposit.
Sure.
I'm Nada Amiri. I'm originally from Afghanistan. I'm 20 years old. I am working at the bank, Brattleboro Saving and Loan, as a teller.
You all set. Have a good day.
Kamala and Neda and about 100 other Afghan refugees moved to southern Vermont in early 2022 after fleeing their country the year before.
My name is Nigina Azimi.
My full name is Sahaila Nabizada.
My name is Hasina Hamdard. Most of the life lived at Kabul, capital city at Afghanistan, and I came here Brattleboro the January 2022.
My name is Yago. My last name is Azimi. Actually, I don't know about my exact age, but in my identification card, I'm 28 years old.
These are some of the Afghan women who landed in Vermont. They had to make a new life for themselves in Brattleboro, which is literally on the other side of the world from their home.
This was 3 years before the Trump administration threw the American refugee resettlement system into chaos. His actions broke the dreams of refugees who were already living in Brattleboro and elsewhere in Vermont. They're safe, they're here legally, but many of them were trying to bring family members to join them so they could live free from oppression and persecution. Now that hope is on hold.
It's hard to know what will happen with refugee resettlement in Vermont. But that doesn't change the fact that the Afghan women who arrived in 2022 were pioneers. They were some of the first refugees to ever settle in Brattleboro.
I'm Jennifer Sutton.
And I'm Alyssa Pine. We've both lived in Brattleboro for decades. In 2022, we were among the volunteers helping Afghan refugees find their way around town. We started asking Afghan women about their histories and experiences, and over the course of 2 years, we talked with nearly 20 women.
The Afghan Women of Brattleboro is a 6-episode series that came out of those conversations. The women we spoke with had different lives back in Afghanistan, different from each other, but they also share a lot in common. They all told us about the shock of leaving their country and their equally shocking arrival in Vermont.
They talked about their families and their goals, and what it's been like for them to rebuild their lives in this strange place that they'd never heard of before. Their journey to get here was one of the most difficult things, if not the most difficult thing they'd ever done. This is episode 1, One Backpack.
The fight started, and we were not hoping, we were not thinking that some days they would be able to occupy all the country.
If you pay attention to the news, you know what happened in August 2021. American troops withdrew from Afghanistan after 20 years, and within days, the Taliban seized power.
The day that Taliban took the control of our country, it was such a hard moment for everyone, and how much we cried, no one can imagine.
I immediately left my office and came home. I was shocked. Taliban has taken over the city. Every place is locked. And now we are over. Nothing has left.
I was so scared to go near to the window and see what's happening. And at the 9 of the evening, I think I saw that their cars coming. There was lots of car and there was flag, their white and black flag.
We had bad dreams about war in our countries. We had bad experience about the explosion in our country. We saw our people on the street when they killed, when they died.
Afghanistan has a long history of foreign invasion and civil war. Even during the most recent period of democracy, there was often conflict in the streets and danger in everyday life.
But this was different. The Taliban wanted to destroy the democracy that had existed since 2001. They were ready to reinstate the brutal fundamentalist laws they'd established when they ruled the country in the 1990s.
You all know the Taliban, they are against the women and the human rights. So if they came to know someone is involved in those types of activities, obviously they will kill them, and they will arrest them.
I was a young leader. I was a women rights activist, and also I was teaching other women how to practice democracy, which is against Taliban rules and regulation. Taliban was thinking the women like me, they are misdirecting the community and the women. So I had to leave.
So did thousands of other Afghans who feared for their lives. But it wasn't just activists like Sohaila who were in danger. Anyone associated with the U.S. or Afghan governments was at risk.
This included Leiluma, who was about 40 years old. She had dreamed of becoming a police officer, but had set that goal aside to raise her 10 children. She had to leave Afghanistan because her husband was a contractor connected to the U.S. military. We're using only her first name to protect her family back in Afghanistan.
My husband worked with companies that built training facilities for Afghan soldiers. The Americans trained Afghans to become police officers. They would hand over all the construction projects to my husband, and he would hire 30 or 40 workers to build those facilities.
The U.S. began one of the largest evacuations in history, helping more than 120,000 Americans and Afghans leave the country.
When people were trying to enter the airport to leave the country, my husband worked as a driver to provide transportation for families. He did this secretly to avoid detection by the Taliban. It was dangerous work.
People around the world watched as total chaos unfolded at the Kabul airport. Afghans frantically tried to get on planes. Western governments and NGOs rushed to help evacuate people like Ziagul, who was a journalist working in the city of Herat with the Afghan Women's News Agency. She reported stories about women's rights, marriage and virginity, domestic violence.
I received a call from Afghanistan Safety Journalism Committee, and they advised me, you should leave Herat, you are not safe. I just called my parents and I told them my office decided to take out in Afghanistan, and they told me the situation is not good. We are worried about you because you are a journalist and maybe it's not good for us also.
Ziagul was afraid for herself and her family. Her parents told her, you should go. So she made her way to Kabul and spent 20 days in a safe house with other journalists.
It's happened suddenly. I received a call 10 a.m. and they told us you should come at 4 o'clock at the Kabul Serena Hotel and we will take you out from Afghanistan.
Nagina was another woman who got unexpected help. She was part of a group of artists called the Art Lords. They painted murals all over Kabul promoting peace and gender equality. Someone from the National Endowment for Democracy, based in Washington, D.C., got in touch with her soon after the Taliban took power.
He said, are you willing to leave your country? And I said, yes. He said, Nagina, this is the situation. We will risk you. Don't ask us questions and be prepared because we don't know when we will call, maybe today or maybe tomorrow. Don't bring anything with you, just you. Only a small backpack that carry water and food because we don't know how many longs will you be in the airport and we don't have any food there. I wanted to collect everything to put inside of that bag. There was too many things. And my mother put lots of water, juice, biscuits, cookies inside of the bag because she knew that everything will be different.
Ziagul and Nagina had support as they fled, but other Afghans had to figure it out on their own, like Hasina, whose husband drove people to the airport.
Getting into the Kabul airport was very difficult. We waited for days and nights outside the airport. We managed to enter at one point, but we were forced to leave. These moments were so hard. We were in a packed car. We were so confined, it was hard to even breathe. My daughter was just 1 month old at that time.
Laylama was outside the airport too, with her husband and 10 children. The youngest was 5 and the oldest was 18. Laylama and her husband went looking for a way in, but they told the kids to wait outside the airport. They thought it would be safer. But as Laylama and her husband pushed toward the airport entrance, the crowd surged and Laylama fell. She hit her head and blacked out.
When she woke up, she was inside the airport. Her husband went looking for the children, but hours had passed and they had gotten lost in the chaos. American soldiers told him that lots of people had boarded planes, so the children might already be on their way to Qatar or Germany. The soldiers said, "You need to get on a plane too."
They took me to Germany, and I didn't understand where I was. I felt like I was dead. I was both heartbroken and injured.
Laylama had been sent to a U.S. airbase in eastern Germany where evacuees were being housed in military tents. She still had her cell phone, and someone showed her which tent had Wi-Fi. She called her family in Afghanistan. She was desperate.
I said, "Please give me news about my children. Where are they? Have they come? Should I return to Afghanistan? Please do something because I'm worried."
The family didn't know where the children were. But the next day, one of Laylama's relatives called back with an update. The children had waited for hours outside the airport, but got scared and ran to the home of a cousin who lived close by. Laylama called them and tried to convince them to return to the airport, to try to get on a plane. But by then a suicide bomber had set off an explosion at the airport. This was August 26th, 2021. 170 Afghans and 13 American soldiers were killed. Laylama's children were too terrified to go back.
Within a few days, the evacuation stopped and the Kabul airport shut down. Laylama's oldest daughter, who was already married, took in her 9 younger siblings. They were all together, but they were thousands of miles away from their mother.
As Laylama was evacuated to Germany, other Afghans went to the Middle East and Europe, sometimes for a few days, but often for weeks or months. When they finally got to the U.S., they went to camps that were set up on military bases around the country. Hasina, who waited outside the Kabul airport with her 1-month-old baby, was sent to Fort Dix in New Jersey, where more than 14,000 refugees were crammed into massive tents.
When we got to New Jersey, it was a rainy and windy night, which made it unpleasant in the tent. Inside the tents, there were black curtains to make separate rooms. I used dental floss to sew them closed to make more privacy for my family.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security was in charge, and the processing was complicated and took a long time. Every refugee got a medical exam, vaccinations, and a government ID card. Then they waited. Leilama, who was separated from her 10 children, went from Germany to Fort McCoy in Wisconsin.
When I was at the camp in Wisconsin, I would visit the American soldiers every day. I kept bothering the soldiers. I would ask for their help to get my children back.
For Zia Gul, the journalist, the journey to Vermont took almost a whole year.
When I left Afghanistan, I went Abu Dhabi for 5 nights. And after that, we went Albania. And almost 7 months we were there. And after that, I came to Virginia. And after Virginia, I came to Las Vegas. And finally, I came in here in Brattleboro.
Why Brattleboro? We'll get into this in more detail in our next episode. But the short story is that the Ethiopian Community Development Council, a national refugee resettlement agency, had set up a new office in Brattleboro.
ECDC, as it's called, started out working with Ethiopian refugees in the 1980s, but expanded into helping refugees from all over the world. ECDC works mostly in cities where a lot of immigrants already live, but by 2021 they were partnering with a few smaller, more rural communities. Brattleboro was one of them.
We were told that we would be settling in Vermont, a place we had never heard about. We looked for Vermont on Google and saw photos of nature. It is a very green state. We liked that.
When I first learned that I'm going to go to Brattleboro, Vermont, it was the first time that I heard the name of Vermont. It was a kind of bit very unfamiliar for me. I was thinking, is any state in the United States of America called Vermont?
In the next episode of the Afghan Women of Brattleboro, we'll hear from Sohaila, Hasina, and other Afghan women as they arrive in Vermont. They left family and friends behind. They were mourning the loss of a country they love, a country that was descending into oppression and fear.
They had fled their homes and been shuffled from military base to military base. After the indignity of living in refugee camps, now, finally, they were landing.
I came to Brattleboro January 20, 2022.
It wasn't winter, snow, too much snow and cold. And it was really hard. Oh my God, I want to go back to Afghanistan.
When I came to Vermont, it was not easy for me to begin like a different life in here. But I started.
The Afghan Women of Brattleboro is made by Two Daughters Productions, with financial support from Vermont Public's Made Here Fund, Vermont Humanities, the Windham Foundation, and the Arts Council of Windham County.
Thank you so much to all the Afghan women who spent time talking with us. Our producing partner, translator, and all-around advisor is Nagina Azimi. Zia Gul Azimi helped launch the project and did the initial interpretation.
Our voiceover actors are Drukshan Farad, Monishka Bidar, and Behishta Nikufar. Mastering by Dave Snyder.
Thanks to Vermont Public for sharing their studio space in downtown Brattleboro. And special thanks to Jenny Schmidt for providing editorial advice.
To learn more about this story and the other stories in this series, visit AfghanWomenofBrattleboro.org. I'm Jennifer Sutton.
And I'm Alyssa Pine. Thanks for listening.